What's up, geeks and gamers? It's Odin coming to you with another video. And today, we're going to be talking about the box office for this past weekend, but I first wanted to say thank you all so much for all of your tremendous support for the work that I've been doing for the Geeks and Gamers channel. It really does mean a lot to me to be able to come back when these videos go live and see the comments and just the tremendous amount of love from this community, especially since this is a usual topic I think that some people usually aren't that interested in when it comes to numbers and just the overall box office fight that happens. So thank you so much for the support, and thank you so much for all the love in the comments, because I do try and read as many comments as I possibly can, and so please just keep it coming, because it's great. It's awesome to see. But anyway, let's talk about this weekend. So this weekend is all about Glass. That's right. So you see the top three movies for this weekend: Glass, The Upside, and Aquaman. And I think there's a story to be told about every single one of those films. First off, Glass is a film that's been getting, got panned by critics, and I would say there's probably a mixed reaction from audiences as well. Got a B cinema score overall, and from the people that I've talked to, there's some people that really liked it, and there are some people that really didn't like it. But regardless of that, it is still making money. It is still, once again, #1 at the box office. The second movie to talk about is The Upside. The Upside is that movie. It's a little engine that could type film. Obviously, I don't think it's going to make a crap ton of money, but the fact that it made $12.2 million this weekend really, I think, means a lot as far as how much love people have for Kevin Hart. I don't think people are going to see this movie because they want to see it. I don't think that anyone wants to see this movie because of the story. I think people are going to support this film because Kevin Hart's in it. And the fact remains is that Kevin Hart is a box office draw. He may not have the amount of power as like a Dwayne Johnson might have at the box office, but still he has enough of a draw to be able to, even with a smaller film, even with a smaller independent type film, bring in audiences. And I think that this is once again showing very clearly that the Oscars and all the people that attacked him, when he became announced to be the host of the Oscars before eventually he stepped down, should really start to take a look at themselves and realize, oh, yeah, we probably shouldn't have done that, because it's probably going to hurt us in the ratings. Because if you think that people are going to show up for him for this movie, for The Upside, they're also going to not show up for him at the Oscars, because guess what? There's a lot of people that are going to boycott it. There's a lot of diehard fans that may have been finally people to watch the Oscars for the first time in their life, but that opportunity is now gone. And then you have other people that may have watched the Oscars every now and then, but now definitely won't because of this overall nonsense. And then, of course, the third movie on this list is Aquaman, which continues to make money. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I think the final numbers of Aquaman are going to be towards the end of this video. But let's just go ahead and see. As far as new releases are concerned, there were about 3 new releases, and they did not do well. The first one up on that list is The Kid Who Would Be King, which I actually hear is not bad. It's gotten very good critical and audience response. It's a movie made by Fox, and it's a movie that I think will likely in the end be able to make a little bit of money, but at this rate, at this time, especially since bigger films are going to be coming out very soon, it is not looking good for Fox. It looks like this film might indeed be a bust when everything is said and done, seeing that it costs about $90 million to make the movie. So it was about $60 million for the production budget. Of course, you take that in half and then add that for the marketing cost, and it's about $90 million. And the film is just not on a good pace right now, not only in the Americas, but also, of course, foreign market as well. And we'll get into the numbers in a second. The other one is Serenity, which is probably going to be the first real official flop of of the year so far, just because no one went to go see it. It's not really in that many theaters either, so it's not likely the film's going to make much more money than that. And then the other one was one called The Invisibles, which I have not heard of, so probably an independent film. Only made $27,000 at 4 theaters, which, I mean, I guess per theater that's not terrible, but yeah, it's still interesting nonetheless, and it is officially a new release, and so I wanted to talk about it. So let's just dive into the numbers really quick. So as I said, The Kid Who Would Be King, production budget was around $60 million, cost overall $90 million, and it only made worldwide $8.3 million so far. This film is very much on pace to be a flop. Now, because the production budget isn't as high as some other bigger flops that we've seen, especially in 2018 with Solo, Star Wars Story that lost $200 million, this film is likely to, probably by the end of its run, be more so at a $30 to $20 million loss by everything, because I don't see this movie really breaking past $50 million that much, because if it only made $7 million this weekend, and most films usually see at least a 50% drop between week 1 and week 2, and the holiday season is over, and there's really no other major holidays coming out, and just movies are going to continue to come out all the way through until summer at this point now that we've kind of we're going to start to get out of that January slump. This film, even though it might have good ratings, even though the audiences might like it, overall, it's not going to get the draw that it needs in order to make its money back. So it's always sad to see a movie get a flop, especially one that stars Patrick Stewart and Rebecca Ferguson, both 2 actors that I really like, and also Bill Pope as a cinematographer who is a very, very good cinematographer. It's sad always to see those kind of movies that just don't do very well, but at the end of the day, I don't think the marketing for this movie was very good. I think that the marketing for this movie was just annoying and just was not compelling at all. It doesn't seem like the type of movie that's going to sell to a foreign audience, and if the domestic market is not going to show up for it either, then there is no place for this movie to make any money. So we're looking at possibly a flop of the year already in the making, but not nearly as much as the other movie, Serenity, which domestically has only made $4.8 million, so has made $3 million less than The Kid Who Would Be King, but also this one has not got good ratings. So, The Kid Who Would Be King at least has the ratings and it has the audience love that can maybe bring audiences back and maybe family recommendations from family to family, things like that. So maybe it has a chance. There is definitely a chance. I'm not trying to say that the end is near for The Kid Who Would Be King, because there are cases of movies being able to just slowly continue to make money over time, but just based on such a low start and a low number, that means very few people saw it, which means the word of mouth is going to be very small, and that just doesn't bode well for it. But Serenity is even worse because it so far has not gotten any kind of foreign release, and this type of a movie, Matthew McConaughey is in this, Anne Hathaway is in this, it doesn't seem like the type of movie that is going to get that type of a release, and so therefore this movie is looking to just burn money. I haven't looked at the production budget for this yet, but I can imagine it was probably around $40 to $50 million, because it seems much like a smaller film, much more lower budget type film. But even with that being the case, we look like this film is probably going to be another flop. And there's been several articles that have been written about this saying, I think we have our first flop of the year. So already off to the start, we have The Kid Who Would Be King, who's very much on pace to be a flop this year, and Serenity, which is very much on pace to be a flop this year, which, I have no interest in seeing it myself, and I imagine that neither of y'all, most of y'all have never even heard of this film, let alone are intending to see it either. Talking about now some other movies that have been out for a while, just to talk about them in general. So Green Book is a movie that just recently was nominated for a couple of awards at the Oscars. I know that many of you do not care about the Oscars, which, hey, guess what? If you don't want to watch the Oscars, in fact, if you want to boycott the Oscars, but you still want to celebrate the film of 2018, you can go to my channel and you can make your vote, man, I can't talk today. You can make your vote and your vote and your voice, I was trying to say voice, vote, and that's the reason why they got mixed up, heard by voting in the first ever annual Wednesday Raven Awards, which is going to be the first ever time I do an award show, and we've got tons of different categories. We got Shill of the Year, we got Film of 2018, all the typical categories, but also some fun categories as well. And so you can actually go to my site, you can go to my YouTube channel, and just click any video, and you'll see a link to that page. And I'll try and get a link to it put in the comments for this video as well. That way, you have access to it. But Green Book is actually a movie I thoroughly enjoyed. It was a production budget of $23 million, so very, very low. It's already made $59 million worldwide. This film, because it's got nominations, is now being re-released in many theaters. So if you missed this movie, it might now be back in theaters for you because it's getting that re-release, because it's got some Oscar buzz. Many consider this to be the front runner because it won something called the Producers Guild Award, and Producers Guild Award tends to predict what's going to eventually win Best Picture at the Oscars. And I can say, even if you read, seriously, if you read the synopsis for this, you might think it's woke, you might think that it's not good, but I can tell you as someone that saw it, this movie is hilarious. And it's interesting because it's definitely, played more as a drama, or at least it seems like the story would make it more as a drama, but it is almost an all-out comedy. And for Peter Farrelly to be directing this is the guy that's done movies like Dumb and Dumber, just like pure comedy and things that I love, but he's also made some recent things with his brother that just aren't very good. This was a huge surprise. It was a well-made movie. It was freaking hilarious, and Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali are just so good together. And Viggo Mortensen probably gives one of the greatest performances of his career also. So if this is in theaters near you, go check it out. Again, this is a film that is going to end up making its money back because of the award season. So it would be really cool to have this film get a little bit more love and a little bit more attention, because, in the past, Oscar winners or Oscar frontrunners are usually films that people don't go to see because they're usually, some political agenda to it. This really doesn't have it. And that's why I personally really like it overall, so I can definitely recommend it. As I said, the upside, I think Kevin Hart is showing himself to be a box office draw. Production budget was around $37.5 million. It's made $69.2, which means that this film, at this point, if you take into account the fact it probably cost around $45 to $50 million, when you add in marketing for the production budget, and the fact that it's probably made roughly around $40 million or so, it's on pace. It is definitely on pace to make money. It's not going to be a box office flop, which I think is a good thing for a Kevin Hart film. But I think that, because it's still in that top three, I think that it's going to continue to make this kind of money. Small game, you can play small ball and you can still make up money in the end, especially when you're a lower budget film and you don't have to make up that much money. So making the $4 to $5 million a week at this point is actually very good for it, especially since it has some presence in the foreign market. It's not really going to get a whole lot there, as you see. It's only made $6 million in the foreign market, so not likely going to show up there much. but the domestic market's still doing well. Film overall that I'm glad to see Kevin Hart's doing well. I know that some people have been critical of this because it's essentially a remake. It's essentially a shot-for-shot remake of a foreign film that was much better in many people's minds. But at the end of the day, I do like Kevin Hart. So I haven't seen it yet, but I actually kind of want to see it just to give it a little bit of support, and also because I think Kevin Hart is great in every single thing he does. All right, 2 more movies, guys. So the Bumblebee movie. This is a film that is actually barely making a profit. This is a film I know a lot of you guys on this channel loved. I did not like it because the writing is terrible, and I know that you guys love the OG Transformers, and the fight scene in the very beginning is very well done, and I think that overall, when you look to the direction is fine. But the writing is the reason why I have the problem with it, because the writer for this is obviously someone who has very little experience, but also is just not a very good writer in the first place. And so I'm kind of worried because she's now been attached to do Birds of Prey coming up in 2020. So I don't really know how good that movie's going to be with that kind of a writing style to it. But Bumblebee overall is indeed now profitable. Again, $135 million production budget. It's made $423 million, which is actually very low for a Transformers film. That is exceptionally low. In fact, what I like about this site especially is that it gives you kind of the ratings of where it stands, and right now in the series of the Transformers films it is ranked 6th, and I believe that's out of so basically it is only above Transformers the movie, which was the animated movie that came out in '86. So this is technically the lowest grossing movie ever, and I think that just tells you that and really helps to exemplify Bumblebee has not had a good traction, because I think the goodwill of the fan base had been so eroded away by what Michael Bay did that people just didn't show up for it, didn't care for it, even though the film was better than they were expecting it to be, and many people loved it and praised it, and that Jeremy has praised it as well. I just don't really like it because of the writing, but a lot of people really aren't showing up for it, especially domestically. I mean, when you look at the fact that there's a 71 and 28% split, it really is interesting how even the foreign market is not showing up in droves for this film. But right now, I want to say, when you look at the numbers and break them down, this film has made maybe about $40 to $50 million in actual net profit, net gain. So it's profitable. You know, it has made money, and any money that it makes from this weekend on is going to be pure profit at this point. But at the end of the day, also, you need to understand that this is not good news for the Transformers franchise, and I hope that when they do, because since it's profitable, they can justify it. If they do decide to make another Bumblebee film outside of the Michael Bay universe or outside of the Michael Bay conception of things, I think that they might want to be careful with, one, how much money they spend, but also how they get their writing down. Because if they can get a good writer, I think that at this point, because this has gotten so much positive feedback from a lot of fans, I think that this number would be much higher a second time around, because people are going to be expecting it, and there's going to be a much higher praise for it. And also, once this gets a DVD Blu-ray release, I think more people are going to say, oh, this actually isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be as a Transformers film. But also, too, when you look to the Transformers universe, you see that this is a film that I think, in all honesty, got snubbed. Even though I personally didn't like it, I think that this should have gotten a a visual effects nomination, at least for the Oscars, but it didn't. And instead, movies like Solo Star Wars Story got nominated, and a couple of others as well. And yet this and the movie I'm about to talk about in a second didn't even get considered. And that last movie, of course, is Aquaman. Aquaman is just still kicking ass, guys. Aquaman is seriously on pace to make a crap ton more money. I know some people are saying, like, oh, hasn't it, petered out a little bit? Well, let's look at the fact that it's made $316 here domestically. It is very likely that this film is going to end up making closer to $330 by the end of its run. I mean, it is still making money. It is still in the top 3 movies, and so it's still making a few million every single week. Obviously, that number is going to go down as newer releases and new movies come out, but it is still making money. The other number that I'm looking to, though, and the one that I think is going to really push it over the edge is indeed that foreign market. And the reason why is because when you look to the foreign market, there is one major market that it has not opened in at this point, and that is Japan. It is not open in Japan. That's right. It is actually not open in one place. It is not open in the country of Japan and will not until February 8th. So that, to me, is going to be the big indication, because Japan is an interesting animal, because Japan could give it $50 million. It could even get it upwards to $100 million extra. Either way, you're looking at a market that's going to definitely boost this film and boost its foreign total quite a bit. I mean, it's already made $766 million at this point. In China alone, it made $294.8 million. So remember that the rule of thumb normally is that if you have a big release in China, if you have a film that's doing very well in China. Remember that this is the whole reason why I predicted that the film was going to break $1 billion when that first weekend came out. Remember that first weekend in China when it came out early. Again, it made $93 million, and I said, all right, this film is going to make $1 billion. And everyone's like, oh, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And it's just because of the fact that when you know how China works, you understand, you understand how much money it's going to make overall. So normally China is about a third of the entire foreign market. And so if you're looking at roughly $300 million, that means that at the bare minimum, At the bare minimum at this point, you're going to see the foreign totals be around $900 million, which is very impressive. And if the domestic total reaches 350, that means you're looking at $1.25 billion by the end of its run. Now, I know that in the very beginning and for a while I've been saying that it's going to outpace and make more than The Last Jedi, and it's still possible. I mean, again, the fact that the least it can make at this point is $1.25 billion, that means that there is still an area of uncertainty about how much it'll make by the end of its run. So I would say, even me as a guy that gave this movie a C+, even I want to go see this movie again for no other reason than I want to make sure this movie is able to make more money than those movies. I want it to make more money than The Last Jedi. I want it to make more money than, for example, Black Panther, because those are films that I think just weren't as good as other people think that they are. But that is definitely still possible. Again, if you have a bare minimum of 1.2, then that means that 1.3, 1.4 are still within the realm of possibility. It really also depends on how well it does in Japan, but also to how it continues to do in other markets. Keep in mind that it's still very fresh in many other markets. This number, the 1.082, is not the final number for this weekend, because the foreign markets work on a very different timeline than it does in the United States. And so therefore it could even be right now at $1.1 billion. It could be even a little bit higher than that. And I think that what we know by the end of this weekend, by the end of its weekend, the foreign market, I think that we'll know, one, we'll have a better idea about where this movie is going to end up foreign-wise. And if we know that, and we have a pretty good idea that this film is outpacing other films that got close to $350 million, that the film is probably going to end at 350, around 350 domestically, which means that if somehow it can break $1 billion worldwide, which, in the foreign market, which I think is definitely still a possibility. I think this is definitely a movie that's going to continue to make and gain steam and continue to be a presence, even though it's going to continue to drop out of theaters and more movies are going to come out to bump it out of the way. Because it's still that little engine that could type mentality, this film definitely could outpace those movies. But anyway, guys, what are y'all's thoughts on this? Do you think that Aquaman is going to outpace The Last Jedi? Do you think that it's possible to make over $1.3 billion? Again, just look at the numbers for yourself. It's being very successful in many other countries. I would actually say that United Kingdom is not showing up for this film as much as I thought that it would. Again, it's only made $27.6 million there, and it did a lot better. Star Wars films have done significantly better in the UK. So all my people in the UK watching this, go and see Aquaman. Get your friends, get your family, get those numbers up, because there's still a lot more money left in the UK that I know of, because I've seen other films and how they have sold in those countries. But also, what are your thoughts about Bumblebee? Do you think that Bumblebee is justified to get a sequel, to get a follow-up to this story with this cast, or maybe with the same directors, etc.? Again, it is making money, but it's definitely not making a crap ton when you look at it, especially when you compare it to other films, being the lowest grossing Transformers film to date. Upside, hey, never thought this film would actually be profitable, but I think Kevin Hart is the only reason why that is the case. Go see Green Book. It is hilarious, but also, too, the NPC SJW types hate this movie. They absolutely hate it. And go ahead and do some research on it yourself, because I think if you do the research and you see how the left has just given so much hate to Viggo Mortensen and to so many other people attached to this film, I think it'll make you want to see this film even more. And not to mention, you are guaranteed to laugh your ass off. It is that funny. Seriously, go check it out. Serenity, who cares? The Kid Who Would Be King. Again, it's sad that a movie that's getting love from other people is not doing well, but at the end of the day, too, looks like this might be another flop. And anyway, those are the movies for the weekend. Please let me know what your thoughts are on any of these movies in the comments below. Also, if you like this video, smash that like button, give us a subscribe. It means a lot to us. And seriously, guys, thank you so much for all of your love. I know this video has been all over the place. That's because there really isn't a whole lot of box office news to look at right now, but don't worry, Captain Marvel is going to continue to be in the news, and it's going to continue to be covered, because man, oh man, I really hope they don't mess up that movie, but unfortunately it looks like they might. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and as always, God bless.